Yes, hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. So, this is today's DCA Daily Current Affairs 31st January 2023. Okay, we are meeting after a long time, so I hope that you are fine and doing well, studying well. Okay, so first of all, we will take the overview of the Hindu newspaper, important articles. Thereafter, we will discuss some important articles from the Hindu as well as Indian Express and other important newspaper we can say. Look at the front page of today's newspaper. Yes, opposition seeks answers on Adani stock fudge. Adani reply ignores every question, hidden bug. So recently, yes, this hidden bug is one of the research institute international level, and it has given one report on Adani group companies talking about some kind of, let's say, a weak financial basis of this company, which may result into some ripple effects in the overall economy, as we know that Adani group companies are very prominent in our economy. Let's see what happens in future, whether this report is true or not. In future we can expect some kind of, let's say, developments. We will have follow up on that later on. Fine. Now look at this news. Channels can staggered content on national importance across programs, central government. Now, in recent times, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has come up with guidelines for uplinking and downloading the television channels in India 2022. So, these guidelines had talked about that all these television channels should provide minimum 30 minutes of its prime time on subjects, topics or programs related to these topics of national importance and social relevance. Okay, so you should be knowing that the particular guidelines are there related to TV channels. Minimum 30 minutes उनके ऊपर जो भी programs चलते हैं prime time पे, they should be based on the subjects of national importance and social relevance. ठीक है, तो ये एक development हम देख सकते हैं यहाँ पर. Now moving on. Okay, on states page, let's see if any important development is there. Look at this. A plan in place to eradicate invasive plant species from Kerala's wildlife habitat. Okay, so which invasive species we are talking here? Senna spectabilis. Senna spectabilis is invasive species, and this invasive species in Periyar Tiger Reserve, this particular exercise is being carried out, and there will be scientific, we can say that, methodology followed by, to remove this invasive species, and there will be like invasive species has to be removed using threefold approach for large trees, large saplings and small saplings. Although it is not important, ये जो किस method को use करके वो remove कर रहे हैं वो exam में नहीं पूछा जाएगा, but remember this as invasive species. Okay, suppose the question is like Senna spectabilis, the tree variety. Recently it was in news of, on the, let's say, with respect to which of the following. So it is basically invasive alien species or invasive species. Yes. All right. Now on editorial page we are going to discuss these two topics. Task for India's Millet Revolution, a very good article talking about the significance, importance of millets in the first part, and the context with International Year on Millets that we are celebrating at world stage, and along with that barriers in millet consumptions. What are different barriers? Some good facts are mentioned here. Thereafter it is giving one case study, Koli Hills, Tamil Nadu, how a particular project by MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Koli Hills has resulted into increase in the production of these millets. So that can be used as a case study in your answer also. We are expecting question related to millets this year. GS3 paper economy part. Look at this, water vows. This editorial is written with the context. Recently Pakistan had gone to court of arbitration, permanent court of arbitration, we can say that, in Hague, seeking amendments to the Indus Water Treaty. ठीक है, Indus Water Treaty of 1960 was treaty between India and Pakistan brokered by World Bank in 1960 for sharing of waters of Indus and its 5 tributaries. We will talk about this issue in detail from international relations perspective IR session. Okay. Now, the other articles we will discuss is this one, the recent wave of tech layoffs. Yes, we are continuously witnessing these news, especially on economy page, that all these big tech companies, IT companies, they are laying off their, or simply we can say that downsizing or right sizing their workforce, human resource we can say. And with that context, this article is written having the holistic coverage. We can say GS3 paper economy part, we can expect such question here related to these tech companies. Fine. Okay, Russia to participate in G20 foreign minister meet. Yes, we are this year's host of G20 summit. We are hosting G20 summit this year, and with that context, as a part of group's activity, India intend to hold more than 200 meetings in different 55 locations to showcase India's cultural heritage. Cultural heritage culminating in G20 summit to be scheduled to be held on September 9th and 10th in New Delhi. ठीक है, तो बहुत सारे अलग अलग मीटिंग हो रहे हैं अंडर G20, we can say that presidentship, and of course there will be different deliberations on different topics there in those meetings. ठीक है. Now look at this news, center to roll out process to set up 16th Finance Commission soon. Now the basics we all know about Finance Commission. Finance Commission is, we can say that, set up every 5 years. The provision is there in Article 280 of Indian Constitution. Article 280 talks about that President can institute or set up the Finance Commission every 5 years. For what purpose? It provides a revenue sharing formula between center and state and their distribution among the states. Right? So this is the main important function, and along with that there will be other functions as recommended by the president. ठीक है, जैसे जो उनका टास्क दिया जाता है प्रेसिडेंट जो है उसके हिसाब से वो बनाते हैं. ओके, सो बेसिकली दे आर कॉल्ड एज टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस. Accordingly, the report is prepared and the report is largely accepted by the government, we can say that, and it is implemented for next 5 years. Now we all know that the 15th Finance Commission and its time period will end 2025-26. Thereafter the new Finance Commission report or recommendations will be implemented for next 5-year cycle. Talking about the 15th Finance Commission, it was for 6 years. It gave 1 year report first as preliminary report and thereafter the 5-year report separately. ठीक है, ऐसे पास्ट में एक बार हुआ है 9th Finance Commission के टाइम पे, जहाँ पे 1 साल के लिए दिया हुआ था रिपोर्ट 1989-90 and thereafter for 5 years 1994 to 95 तक. ओके, सो नाउ 15th, याद रखिए हिस्ट्री वाला भी फैक्ट, पास्ट वाला भी फैक्ट आपको पूछा जा सकता है. 9th Finance Commission and 15th Finance Commission, and there will be now this year we can expect that 16th Finance Commission can be constituted. 15th Finance Commission के chairperson जो थे NK Singh थे. Okay, now one key challenge has been put forward here by NK Singh talking about before the 16th Finance Commission. The key challenge will be the independent GST council that is there. Now we all know that Finance Commission gives out the formula, but this formula basically is for 5 years. But from time to time, when the GST council takes the decision, the GST revenue changes, and that's why there will be parallel development of GST council and implementation of recommendations of Finance Commission. That is going to be the major challenge, ki how to deal with this parallel developments. Okay, so let's see what happens in future regarding this. General Assembly divided over UN reforms. So this year's UNGA president, 77th UNGA president, and he is visiting India and he had commented on UN reforms. We know that UN reforms is very important topic in our we can say GS2 paper IR section. ठीक है, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस, तो उस हिसाब से आपको तैयार करना है. एंड ही इज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट UNGA itself is divided and there are no efforts in UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, talking about the reforms. There are different groups formed within the UNGA, and there is no at present or yet any kind of resolution talking about UN reforms. ठीक है, very good statement that our external affairs minister had given recently talking about UN reform or United Nations. So recently held Voice of Global South Summit, where he said, or he described UN as frozen 1945 invented mechanism. We can use such words directly quoting our external affairs minister, we can say in our answers, GS2 paper IR section. Now we all know that recently there had been continuous violence in the West Bank region of Israel. So from mapping perspective, it is your task to see the West Bank, where it is located, along with that the other areas like Golan Heights and the Jerusalem area, we can say that the Dead Sea, the forming boundary between Israel and Jordan. ये आपका एक atlas का task रहेगा. Remember that ये जो world page होता है international, यहाँ पे जो भी developments हो रहा है, along with IR section, you should be also preparing from world geography mapping part from this page. ठीक है? Okay. Fine. So let's go in details of some important news from this newspaper and some other, we can say that news, like for example in Indian Express, there is good article talking about Charbagh architecture or style, art and culture perspective. Say why we are discussing this, because the Mughal Gardens in New Delhi, President's Palace, had been renamed as we can say Amrit Udyan. तो अमृत उद्यान में जो आर्किटेक्चर टाइप यूज किया गया है वो चारबाग स्टाइल है, एंड along with we can say other many such Mughal architecture like Taj Mahal or even other we can say that architectural marvels during the Mughal time. The second article is how do cows and sheep contribute to climate change. The context of this article is also we will see and discuss from the ecology and environment perspective. Finally, some mains and prelims related MCQs we will discuss. First article, task for India's Millet Revolution. Okay, so let's first of all understand the basics of this. Or context is that we are celebrating International Year on Millet 2023 as International Year on Millet, and yes, it was proposed by India and it was accepted by UN, and that's why it is very important, we can say significant development. And India is promoting not only at national but international level the importance of millets. Now what are millets? Millets are basically they are also called as nutri cereals, simply because of very high amount of nutrients they are having. There are we can say that they are why we are saying that nutri cereals, just now I told you that nutrients, what kind of nutrients they are having. They are having very high amount of proteins, high amount of fiber content, antioxidants. So they are very important for, we can say that, having good health. Along with that, there is some economic significance, जहाँ पे हम ये बोल रहे हैं agroeconomic significance, drought resistant होते हैं, very small amount of water is required, so that's why they can be grown in dry or semi-arid regions, semi-arid areas. So it is good for those farmers in that region, those who are not having water resources or irrigation facilities, वहाँ पे ये crop काफ़ी अच्छे से grow हो सकता है. So nutritional agroeconomic. Now if you talk about further aspects, millets दो type के होते हैं, major millets, okay, major millets and minor millets. Examples of major millet, sorghum यानी कि जवार, इसको जवार बोलते हैं हम common language में. Then there is, we can say that yes, finger millet, इसको हम रागी बोलते हैं, finger millet. And there is, we can say that pearl millet. पर्ल मिलेट का हम क्या बोलते हैं, जवार बाजरा, ठीक है, पर्ल मिलेट इज बाजरा. Remember this for prelims examination. Minor millets are like small millet or foxtails, or we can say that barnyard millet, barnyard millets, right? So these are the examples. This can be asked in the prelims examination. Remember this, very, very important. Fine. Now after this, what are the barriers to the millet consumption? Okay, production and consumption, simply we can say that. Now we should understand at present, if we talk about the production, the area under cultivation, the traditional area under the cultivation millets has gone down. This is the major concern. Second concern is that declining or stagnant productivity of these crops. Then thereafter, the challenge related to consumption. Now, consumption aspect is that we are experiencing further urbanization, very increasing rates of urbanization. Now urbanization में क्या होता है, ready to eat food चाहिए. Ready to eat food कहाँ से बनेगा? Food processing industries. Now we are having food processing industries largely based on the wheat and rice and not millets. So absence of those food processing industries for millets, this is also one of the challenge for consumption aspect. Okay, so then lack of awareness among the people that these are nutri cereals. उनको पता ही नहीं है कि ये न्यूट्रिशियस होते हैं, तो उनको खाना चाहिए, कैसे उनके प्रोडक्ट्स हम कंज्यूम कर सकते हैं. सो दीज आर ऑल बैरियर्स वी कैन से. एंड यस, द राइस wheat system that has been promoted by the government, and that's why less government support in terms of compulsory procurement. Although there is MSP, but compulsory procurement is not there, which is there in we can say rice and wheat case. So that these are the challenges, remember this, for production and consumption aspects. Right. Now what is the case study of Kolli Hills, Tamil Nadu? This MS Swaminathan Institute, Research Institute had focused on various aspects there. First one is that increasing production and productivity. So how to increase the yield of these crops? This was first focused, and for that purpose they had focused more on indigenous varieties of seeds, Okay. Then second aspect, they focused on post-harvest mechanisms. Like for example, simply storage and processing. So here they form self-help groups of women in the village areas, and they started the preliminary processing of this we can say that millets. क्योंकि millets में क्या होता है, hard cover होता है outside से, तो उसको फोड़ के अंदर से millets निकाले जाते हैं. So that process required some kind of manpower, and self-help groups in the villages, they provided a good, we can say that, employment opportunities to the villagers also. And the third aspect is training and capacity building. Training and capacity building of the people or farmers, this has resulted into further, we can say, increase in yield and overall production of millets in that region. A similar kind of project can be implemented, replicated all around India, or especially traditional producing areas of millets. Remember that millets are very nutritious, and they can be included in our PM Poshan scheme, which was earlier, we can say that the midday meal scheme is now as part of PM Poshan scheme. तो मिड डे मील में ये सारी चीज़ें मिलेट्स न्यूट्रिशियस मील दी जा सकती है, राइट. सो दैट कैन बी वन ऑफ द वेरी गुड initiative, we can say, to ensure nutritional security of children in India. Fine. Okay, so this is GS3 paper, economy part, agroeconomy part. Second, conflict over Indus water treaty. Now basics, context. What is the context? Recently Pakistan has gone to Permanent Court of Arbitration, Hague, which is situated in Hague, Netherlands. So yes, this court of arbitration, we can say that is based on, simply as the name suggests, arbitration. Arbitration क्या होता है? दो parties के बीच में third party arbitration होता है, and yes, if suppose the mutually agreeable solution is found, then both implement that. Otherwise, there is no outcome here. Simply, we should understand basics of Indus Water Treaty 1960. Okay, Indus river and its 5 tributaries. Which are these 5 tributaries? ऊपर से देखते हैं, ठीक है, झेलम, चिनाब, then we have Ravi, Bias and Satluj. Ravi, Bias and Satluj. These are the 5 tributaries. Now this Indus Water Treaty was negotiated between India and Pakistan, and it was brokered by World Bank. Remember. Okay, it was brokered by World Bank. And this treaty seeks to create a formula for sharing of these waters of these rivers. Now according to this treaty, the waters of westernmost 3 rivers goes directly to the Pakistan, and the easternmost 3 rivers, they can be utilized by India. Now which are the westernmost 3 rivers? Indus itself and Jhelum and Chenab. The waters of Indus, Jhelum and Chenab cannot be obstructed by India. वहाँ पे कोई भी बड़ा डैम बांध के उसको पानी को रोका नहीं जा सकता है या डाइवर्ट नहीं किया जा सकता है. But the remaining 3 easternmost rivers, Ravi, Bias, Satluj, its water can be used by India. There can be hydroelectricity plant, dams, diversion, canals. ये सारा पानी हम use कर सकते हैं इन 3 rivers का. Remember this, and that's why we have so many dams and canals built across these rivers. Now, why it is in news? Why Pakistan is not happy? Because of 2 projects it is objecting. India has proposed run-off rivers projects on, we can say, one on Kishan Ganga, which is tributary of Jhelum, Kishan Ganga project, hydroelectricity project, and second is Ratle Dam, Ratle hydroelectricity project, not dam. Ratle hydroelectricity project is on Chenab river. Both are in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so the Pakistan has obstructed that and said that these 2 projects are in violation of Indus Water Treaty. But India contends that this is not violation. Why? Because we are not obstructing the flow of water. These are run-off river projects. There is no building of large dam or diversion of water. ठीक है, तो ये हमारे arguments है इंडिया की तरफ से. Now Pakistan has gone to this court of arbitration. Why India is not happy for this? Because this Indus Water Treaty itself is having dispute redressal mechanism. According to this treaty, there will be neutral, we can say that arbitrator, a neutral expert will be appointed by World Bank whenever such kind of dispute is raised by one party. And there will be again negotiation and the dispute resolution inbuilt mechanism is there in this treaty. And Pakistan is not following this mechanism where India is ready to negotiate or follow this mechanism. India has completely boycotted this particular court of arbitration at present. ये सारे developments हैं. Let's see the analysis part. Okay, ये present conflict होने के बाद analysis, and in analysis one should clearly understand that this treaty was signed in 1960, but it was being negotiated since independence, since the partition 1947, and it took more than 10 years to negotiate this party and could arrive at the mutually agreeable solution. And second thing we should understand, there is one thing that is highly successful between these 2 countries. बाकी जगह पे हम देखते हैं कि बहुत ज़्यादा relations अच्छे नहीं हैं इंडिया पाकिस्तान में, but this is the only, we can say, area Indus Water Treaty has been successfully implemented by both countries. Even if there are no diplomatic or political level, we can say, dialogues, but still every year the experts from both, representatives from both countries meet for the annual meeting of this Indus Water, under this Indus Water Treaty. It is a kind of template for all other parts of the world, other countries, they followed this. So in first part we should understand this. Second thing, that now India wants to completely renegotiate this treaty. India wants to completely renegotiate this treaty, and this is what we should understand and critically analyze here. Renegotiating complete treaty is problematic. Why? Because if at that time, before, we can say that 50 years back it took almost 10 years, अब इसको renegotiate करने में कितने साल लग सकता है? So we cannot imagine that. Because why? At present we do not have good relations with Pakistan. ठीक है, especially after 2008 attacks, Mumbai attacks, all the relations we have severed, all relations with Pakistan thereafter. तो ये अगर political और अदर, जिसको हम ट्रैक टू डिप्लोमेसी बोलते हैं, वहां पे अगर अच्छे से रिलेशन नहीं है, तो all these areas renegotiation of this particular treaty is very hard, we can say, and it can take a lot of time. So in analysis we should always recommend here that both countries should come on a common platform as that is there in dispute redressal mechanism under treaty. ठीक है, बायलैटरली ही इसको सॉल्व करना चाहिए, जो मैकेनिज्म है, इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म्स में नहीं लेके जाना चाहिए. सो दिस शुड बी प्रपोज्ड इन द एंड एज अ वे फॉरवर्ड हियर. फाइन, ओके. नाउ मूविंग ऑन, द रीसेंट वेव ऑफ टेक लेऑफ्स. Context is that along with other tech layoffs, now recently IBM company has also said that it will be laying off certain employees. ठीक है, तो in past, recent past, we have seen that Facebook, Twitter or Amazon, Walmart or Google, Microsoft, all these companies have to certain extent are downsizing or right sizing their human resource. Talking about certain facts, yes, hiring and firing in big techs, थोड़े से facts भी हमें पता होने चाहिए आंसर में लिखने के लिए, right? So Alphabet, it is the parent company of Google company. ठीक है, तो इन्होंने पिछले एक साल में जो है 12,000 एम्प्लॉइज को फायर किया गया है. Microsoft 10,000, Meta which is the parent company of Facebook 11,000 and Amazon 18,000. You can see that the number of employees fired by the Amazon. Now talking about the proportion of these employees as compared to total employees of that company, the highest is in Meta, 13% layoff. ठीक है, percentage of total workforce. ठीक है, बाकी देख सकते हैं आप 6%, 5%, 6%. This is how we should understand, and we should mention these in your answer if suppose the question is related to this in economy section. Coming back to the discussion. Now, who has made this layoff? Just now we have seen about these companies. Do they affect Indian professionals? Yes. According to one, let's say, analysis here, 30 to 40% Indian employees are affected. Okay, Indian professionals are affected. We all know that these IT companies, they are based in largely US and other European companies, and Indian professionals, software engineers, they go there on work visa, especially we can say in US H1B visa, and their dependents on L1 visa. ठीक है, तो ये वीजा पे सबसे ज्यादा इंडियंस होते हैं, एंड दे आर स्ट्रगलिंग इन यूएस बिकॉज इफ देयर वर्क वीजा एक्सपायर्स दे हैव टू कम बैक टू इंडिया. ठीक है, जो 30 to 40% एम्प्लॉइज जो फायर किए गए इंडियंस हैं. So that is going to impact Indian professionals for sure. ये भी fact आपको लिखने आना चाहिए. How huge are these big layoffs? Huge. One should understand the reason behind layoffs to understand this, we can say, scenario. First reason is that during pandemic, what we have observed is two things. One is work from home. Second thing is we can say that increased boost to e-commerce. ठीक है, that's why the Amazon and other companies जो है work from simply e-commerce, ये जो है ज़्यादा शुरू हो गया, इनका बिजनेस बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया. So why this happened? Because there was increase in demand for e-services, or simply we can say that the e-solutions, everything gone digital because of pandemic, and therefore it was more let's say demand for the work from the IT companies. तो इसलिए उन्होंने क्या किया है, बहुत ज़्यादा हायरिंग किया लास्ट 2 साल में during pandemic time period, and they felt that it is the boom time for them. But suddenly last year what happened is the commerce, e-commerce पहले जैसा ही हो गया है, whatever the demand for e-commerce, क्योंकि फिर से प्रोटोकॉल जो है पैंडमिक के खत्म हो गए, and the distancing norms were also removed, and that's why the people started coming out and they started buying directly from the shops or whatever it is, the street shopping and all. So e-commerce वाला जो है वो फिर से कम हो गया है. Okay, so this is how now the demand has gone down, and therefore they are feeling that they have hired more employees as compared to what is needed, and that's why they are saying that they are now right sizing their human resource, right sizing, although some people are calling them as downsizing, but right sizing. Okay, so understand that how huge is that, how huge in terms of, simply we can say the numbers just now we have seen, and the background is why it is happening. Do the layoffs signify trouble for big tech companies? No, simply we should understand that by reducing that, the employees, what they are doing by right sizing that, they want to increase the profit itself. Rather, many of these companies have let's say profited last इकोनॉमिक क्वार्टर ऑल्सो और फाइनेंशियल क्वार्टर ऑल्सो. ठीक है, तो प्रॉफिट्स तो है उनके, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. सम ऑफ द कंपनीज दे डू नॉट वांट इन फ्यूचर टू हैव और बियर लॉसेस, एंड दैट्स व्हाई दे आर डूइंग दिस. ठीक है, तो ये जो है ट्रबल नहीं है, लार्जली सिंपली अंडरस्टैंड दैट दे वांट टू एंश्योर द राइट साइजिंग हियर. व्हाट डू लेऑफ्स से अबाउट द लार्जर यूएस जॉब मार्केट? यस, simply we should understand that the US job market is largely in this particular section, largely immigrants, India, China और other countries से जो है software professionals जो आते हैं. Now there will be rejig, some kind of rejig in those labor markets because of these layoffs. This aspect one should clearly understand. Okay, so fine, now you have clearly understood. GS3 paper economy part. Next article, different styles that came together to form Mughal Gardens, now Amrit Udyan. This is renamed as Amrit Udyan. तो ये news में था कल, right? Let's understand the basics here. What is the art and culture aspect involved here? Spread over 15 acres, Mughal Gardens, which were earlier called as Mughal Gardens, now we can say Amrit Udyan, draw inspiration from Mughal Gardens of Jammu Kashmir. वहाँ से inspiration है, and also gardens around Taj Mahal and miniature paintings of India and Persia. Now, who designed this? Edwin Luton. So, majority of the structures in Delhi were designed by Luton. That's why we have Luton's Delhi. We call it as. Had finalized designs for Mughal Gardens in 1917, but actually the construction started in 1928-29. ठीक है. Now, the styles, like similar to building of Rashtrapati Bhavan, having two different styles of architecture, Indian and Western. Similarly, Luton's brought together two different horticulture traditions in those gardens, Mughal style and English flower garden. ठीक है, English flower garden. Now, in Mughal style, which particular style is followed? चार बाग style. चार बाग style में क्या होता है? देखिए ऐसे. Suppose this is the area. In this area, the plantings are done like this. चार बाग. 4 gardens are formed like this. Okay, and these 4 gardens, in those 4 gardens, ऐसे वहाँ पे बीच में रास्ता होगा, ऐसे जंक्शन, और वहाँ से क्या किया होगा, उन्होंने पानी छोड़ा होगा, पानी का रास्ता होगा. ठीक है. So if you have visited Taj Mahal or Humayun tombs in Delhi, Taj Mahal in Agra, you can see such kind of charbagh style followed there. Okay, a similar kind of style is also followed in these Amrit Udyan, now the earlier Mughal gardens. The other features like pools, fountains and canals inside the garden. Now there are several such Mughal gardens in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India. In fact, Babur had described his favorite type of garden as charbagh. ये हिस्ट्री वाला एस्पेक्ट आपको पता होना चाहिए. फाइन. Okay, now next is how do cows and sheep contribute to climate change? Okay, the context is that Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates have invested in an Australian climate technology startup Rumin8 that aims to curtail methane emissions of cow burps. Okay, what this particular Rumin8 company startup is seeking to do is developing variety of dietary supplements to feed to cows in a bid to reduce amount of methane they emit into the atmosphere. The supplement will also include red seaweed, which is believed to drastically cut methane outputs in cows. Red seaweed. This can be asked in the prelims examination. Remember this. Now the basics. The stomachs of ruminant animals have 4 compartments, one of which is rumen. That's why the name ruminant. Now this rumen helps them to store partially digested food and let it ferment. Okay, let it ferment. This partially digested and fermented food regurgitated by the animals who chew through it again and again and finish the digestive process. Now the problem is that when this vegetation grass ferments in the rumen, it generates methane, the potent greenhouse gas. This digestive system responsible for 27% of all methane emissions from human activity. Remember this. Methane is responsible for 30% of global warming since pre-industrial times. It is second to carbon dioxide. Okay, yes, it's also primary contributor to formation of ground level ozone. We learned this in environment section. Ground level ozone is the secondary pollutant, or simply we can say that it is not naturally formed. Naturally occurring ozone, where it is there? In stratosphere. It is a protective layer. It is called as good ozone. Ground level ozone is called as bad ozone. Why? Because this irritates the eyes. It is, when inhaled, it is going to create problem for respiratory system. Also, it is responsible for creating photochemical smog. ठीक है, तो ये सारे problems होते हैं. Remember this. It can be asked in the prelims examination. Just now we talked about these facts. Now mains question. Now, why are tech companies letting go of thousands of employees? Reasons we should write. How will these layoffs affect Indian tech professionals? You can mention that 30 to 40% of these are Indian professionals having the, let's say, work visa, तो उनके ऊपर effect होगा. Why did big tech companies go on hiring spree during the pandemic? You mentioned about the pandemic, e-commerce, increase in demand. That's why hiring. What is the nutritional and agroeconomic significance of millets? Discuss the barriers in millet production and consumption. Very important. We can expect such kind of question in GS3 paper. Discuss the important provisions of Indus Water Treaty 1960 in the context of recent conflict. ठीक है, इसमें specifically dispute redressal mechanism जो है वो आपको बताना चाहिए आंसर में. Fine. Now prelims MCQs. Now what should be answer to this one? Try to solve this. Which of the following is or are sources of methane in atmosphere? Such kind of questions are asked in the prelims examination. Yes, what should be the answer? Yes, there are natural as well as man-made or anthropogenic sources of, we can say, methane emissions. If you talk about the natural ones, wetlands are there, oceans are there, wetlands, oceans, or simply we can say that right. So whenever there is fermentation happening naturally, तो वहाँ पे क्या होता है? Methane emissions होता है. Rice cultivation man-made होगा, livestock man-made होगा, landfills जो है man-made होगा, biomass burning जो है man-made होगा. Basically all these 5 are sources of methane. If suppose the question is specifically asking about the man-made sources, anthropogenic, and we can say that the natural sources, there can be separately classification of these sources. This year itself there was in prelims question related to methane emission, rice or paddy cultivation, that was the answer there. ठीक है? Consider the following statements about methane. we have to identify the correct statements. ठीक है, correct statement. It is odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that is lighter than air. Now we should know the properties of these pollutants. जब भी हम pollutants के बारे में पढ़ते हैं, what all factors we need to study? First of all, properties, important characteristics of those pollutants. Second thing is that we should be knowing about the sources, and within sources natural and man-made sources. Third is that impact, consequences on health and other factors of environment. And fourth is control measures that are being undertaken by government of India and what further needs to be taken, measures to be taken for. ये चार चीजें आपको प्री और मेंस दोनों में pollution related aspects or pollutants related aspects से याद रखना है. So this is property, this statement is correct. Its lifetime in the atmosphere is much shorter than the carbon dioxide. This is also true. Second statement, what is more potent greenhouse gas as compared to carbon dioxide? Yes, this is also true. So all three statements are correct. D is the correct answer in this question also. Fine. So try to solve such kind of MCQs. Taking, let's say, inspiration on daily basis. We are discussing 10 MCQs live at 2 o'clock. So ये जो हम करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ते हैं, तो आज का करंट अफेयर्स हम दिन में पढ़ते हैं, तो दूसरे दिन इसके ऊपर प्रैक्टिस करनी चाहिए. क्वेश्चंस, इट विल टेस्ट योर नॉलेज, इट विल इवैल्यूएट योर नॉलेज, कहाँ पे अपनी गलती हो रही है वो देखना है. करंट अफेयर्स बेसिस पे MCQs ज़्यादातर प्रैक्टिस करना मुश्किल होता है, स्टूडेंट्स को राइट MCQs नहीं मिलते हैं. So for that you can see or watch those daily 10 MCQ practice videos at 2 o'clock. Fine? Okay, let us stop then. Thank you.